you really struggling learning to remember vocabulary?
Try this.
What's up, guys? Welcome to WaiGuo Friends English. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of an unusual method, but it's something that will help you just engage more of your mind so that you can really remember vocabulary.
Vocabulary building is hard, right? I've done a lot of videos here recently about building vocabulary because it is hard even as an advanced learner. So if you are struggling to remember vocabulary because there's just so much vocabulary, we get it. And we have found a secret way for you guys to be able to remember vocabulary not only better, but be able to recall it faster, be able to just get it lodged right in your brain. And that is ASL, or American Sign Language, which kind of like the TPR method, ASL or sign language will help you reinforce what you're speaking.
The TPR method is total physical response, which is a methodology that is based on the idea that the more you move with words, the better they sink in. It's just another connection that your brain makes to that term or that phrase. So games like Simon Says really capitalize on this. People that do total physical response really well, that meaning they can listen and obey very quickly, that's a great way to practice TPR, especially in the beginning, in beginner levels. But even at the advanced level, American Sign Language could be helpful to you because these are signs that you make with your hands and reactions that you do with your body and your face, right? In order to communicate a concept. We need to be clear with American Sign Language here. ASL is a language that's different from English, okay? It is not the same. Grammatically, it is not the same. There's a lot of things that are missing from it, like to be verbs, articles, subject-verb agreement. There's no adding an S when it says he sees this. There's nothing like that. And sometimes the order is a lot different as well. Moreover, there's not a sign for every single English word in the dictionary. ASL is based off of concepts.
Personally, I love this. I love the fact that ASL and sign language is based on concepts because it helps you craft the sentence a lot better than like having to focus on all the intricacies of the grammar and did you conjugate that verb right? Did you do the subject-verb agreement properly? Like all of the things that make up language that make people sound like they're not a native speaker. ASL has a lot of freedom in that, in the fact that there's more expression that can be had. I have been laughed at by people who don't actually know a lot of sign language in the fact that people who sign are some of the most expressive people you can ever meet because they are using the body language that they have, they're using their hands, they're using their facial expressions. They're so expressive with their language. And it's actually a beautiful thing to see two people communicate using sign language because they are actually doing in-depth communication, even if the grammar might not be as intricate, for example, as maybe spoken English or written English. The ability to communicate is on a whole nother level, which is amazing.
So let's reel it back here. Why sign language? Why are we suggesting that you learn signs if you're struggling with vocabulary? The idea is basically these words are connected by concept in a very simplistic sense. So here's a simple example. The sign for father applies to all the words for a father. Okay, all of the English words like pa, poppy, pop, pops, daddy, dad, baba, all of those things, all of those ways that we can call our dads, that one sign covers all of them. So the concept of father, dad, daddy, like all of those, the concept for father goes over all of those. So in a way, it takes all of those words that we use in English to describe a dad and we bring it back to its root. What is the root concept? Now think of how powerful that is for advanced vocabulary. Taking all of those synonyms that mean essentially it's kind of sort of the same thing. Now there's nuances, okay? There are differences that you can back up with your tone of voice or with your body language, but bring them all back to their root meaning. That right there, there's one sign for all of those words, okay? Bring it back to the root meaning. What is really interesting is when you do mean one of those synonyms, when you do mean something like this, yeah, you could try to spell it out. But the point is that you make that bridge and you have that root understanding that all of those words are rooted to this word. And so that is really powerful when you are at the advanced level and you're working on improving your synonyms. You're trying to remember which synonyms are synonymous with which word. That's really important to be able to tie those words together by concept. And that's where the superpower of ASL comes in with learning English.
Another thing that sign language is really good at is distinguishing homophones. I know this isn't a huge deal for a lot of people, but if there is a sound or a word that sounds like exactly like another word, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to differentiate that. For example, night and night. These two words have very different meanings. They have very different concepts. Phonetically, they sound identical. By showing them on the screen, you can see that they're not the same. But by concept, they're definitely not the same. And so if you were learning sign language for whatever a knight is, like a knight in shining armor, then that will be a lot easier to remember despite the fact that it sounds exactly the same as another word. Another example that could be difficult is to lie, as in to speak falsely, or to lay down. These are often confusing to speakers, even me, but to lie down or to lie to a person's face, they are homophones, and they're very tricky because they're verbs and they get conjugated in different ways. If you could use an ASL sign to lie down on a bed and to lie to a person's face, that would help you distinguish these two tricky words.
Now, we are not suggesting that you go and you learn the grammar of ASL and you learn that as a language, because it is a language. It is a separate language from English. And like I said, if you're going to speak English and sign at the same time with the grammar and everything, it's going to look a lot different. It's going to be in a different order. It's going to be a bit confusing. We are suggesting that you learn the signs by concept so that you can help understand the bridges between words in English. Again, languages do not directly translate into one another, so there are going to be differences. But this is just a small thing you can do to kind of engage your mind in a different way. If you're really struggling with just remembering words or understanding which words are connected to which ones or which ones are different but sound the same or they are different words, having your hands doing something with those words is going to help you a little bit. Having a sign to go with those is going to help. It's kind of like using mnemonics a little bit, where to help you remember how to spell island, you say is land. That's one of the things that people can use to practice vocabulary. But in this way, you're engaging your hands, which is going to help your mind out in a different way.
A third reason why using sign language can really help your vocabulary is just it will help you be more expressive. Like we've said before, a lot of times we think we're more expressive than we actually are. And so one of the things that sign language will help you do is to help you get your body moving so you don't just get kind of frozen when you're trying to speak a new language, because it happens. It happened to me in my languages that I've studied. It happens to a lot of people. You're spending so much energy up here trying to think about what needs to be said that you're not thinking about right here, the delivery of the communication that's actually happening. So if you're using sign language, it kind of breaks that barrier a little bit so that you can be able to then express yourself more fully, because that's the whole goal, right? The whole goal is the other person is able to understand what you're meaning. And so that's why we do videos. That's why this is not a podcast, so that you guys can see our body language and see how what we're trying to communicate, that expressive nature helps and aids in communication.
All right, guys, that's just a quick tip from us today, just to help you guys if you're on this plateau or if you've been struggling for the last few months with just kind of breaking a barrier with your vocabulary, regardless of what level you're at in English. Adding this little bit of ASL, learning some signs to match to those vocabulary might help you out a little bit.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.